Welcome to Perspectives, a podcast where the clergy women of the First United Methodist Church of San Diego share their musings on scripture, theology, and what it has to do with us.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Perspectives. I'm Reverend Brittany, and I am here with Reverend Hannah. We're going to be talking again in our series about the stories that save us, and this week we're talking about the story of forgiveness. But before we hop into our scripture, we would like to thank our first Patreon members, Barb, Sabrina, and Danica. We are so grateful for your continued support, and if there are any of you who are out there who would like to join them, you may at patreon.com/FUMCSD. Our scripture for today comes from the Gospel of John, chapter 8, verses 2 through 11. I'm reading from the Common English Translation. Can I speak today, Reverend Hannah?
No.
Right.
But you're speaking just fine.
Thank you so much. Early in the morning, he returned to the temple. All the people gathered around him, and he sat down and taught them. The legal experts and the Pharisees brought a woman caught in adultery. Placing her at the center of the group, they said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of committing adultery. In the law, Moses commanded us to stone a woman like this. What do you say?" They said this to test him, because they wanted a reason to bring an accusation against him. Jesus bent down and wrote on the ground with his finger. They continued to question him, so he stood up and replied, "Whoever hasn't sinned should throw the first stone." Bending down again, he wrote on the ground. Those who heard him went away, one by one, beginning with the elders. Finally, that just chuckles me every time. It just gets me. Finally, only Jesus and the woman were left in the middle of the crowd. Jesus stood up and said to her, "Woman, where are they? Is there no one to condemn you?" She said, "No one, sir." Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go, and from now on, don't sin anymore." What do you think, Reverend Hannah?
Don't sin anymore. Don't sin anymore. Sounds like a solid lesson. And in order for me to understand don't sin anymore in this text, I need to go back a little bit about the context of this. Studying the Gospel of John and reading the whole Gospel story, moving from one to another, there's a little bump moving into this story. So in chapter 7, verse 52, there are people who are saying, "You're not from Galilee too, are you?" Look it up and you'll see that the prophet doesn't come from Galilee. There's a little looking down upon Jesus. And then this story comes in. Yeah. But in between those two stories, there's this connecting words. They each went to their own homes. Everyone went to their own homes. And Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. And then early in the morning, he returned to the temple. So there's the transitional sentences. And there are people who argue that this part of the story, this story of the woman caught in adultery, doesn't belong to the Gospel of John. And there are many reasons why they are doing that, like the word scribes never appear in the Gospel of John other than this one, and the Mount of Olives never been used in the story other than this one, and Jesus is never referred to as teacher other than this story. So some of those words used in this text tell us that this might be non-Johannine story that doesn't fit into that one. Then why did people say that it could have been added to the Gospel of John as late as maybe 900.
Okay.
After the Common Era. Then why did this story get into the book. What's the message? And I find the reason in the last verse you read, don't sin anymore. And that actually introduces the concept of sin and the need for forgiveness,
Right.
which is much later developed theological story. And they had to connect that concept of sin and forgiveness to the teaching of Jesus. That made sense to me. What do you think?
Well, I think that exactly what you said, that the concept of sin is kind of introduced here in this text because that wasn't a theological concept. I think that the law was trying to get people to live a certain way, right? But it didn't necessarily have it had an emphasis on wrongdoing as a legal
Morality.
or more, rather than what was right, what was good, right? So what really sticks out to me about this message of sin is there are a couple of things. One, it's interesting to me that the Pharisees bring this woman forward for adultery as though adultery doesn't require two people.
Yeah.
Right?
There was a reason why they brought incomplete accusation
Exactly.
here.
So then they could accuse him, right?
They wanted to entrap Jesus first.
Right. So they don't bring this other man to the situation. And then when we read the text from our modern lens, right, it can be used as a justification for adultery. I mean, it can be used as a justification to smite certain people in these acts. And it's like, that's not the point of this. Like, that's not what Jesus was saying. So it's interesting, one, that they bring this woman and that in so many instances, she has been used as this scapegoat for all that is immoral sometimes.
Just to undermine Jesus.
Just to undermine Jesus, right? Like, you bring this woman as collateral damage, right? So then I also think about, like, what it has meant for me to be in embarrassing moments or in moments where I feel like I've made a mistake, and to have that, like, publicly presented to the world. I mean, the embarrassment that goes into that, the shame, like, she was this person. I mean, yes, I know why they brought her there to, like, undermine Jesus, but the fact that she has to be the face of it now and go into her community and everybody knows it, but this man is just, like, anonymous kind of thing, you know what I mean? And just, like, holding all of that. And I think that sometimes at least when I've made a mistake, it feels like it's so heavy on me, and I feel so much shame about it because I'm like, I can't believe I made that mistake. I should have known better. I should have done better. How could I, and it, to me, is even worse, or has, at least in my previous experiences, has been amplified when there were so many other people standing around, like, pointing the finger.
Yes. And you're just highlighting some important fact about the faith community. The faith community is not a place where we can be comforted and welcomed and forgiven.
Right.
It's often a place of humiliation.
Yes.
And here, the Mosaic law partially brought to the public. And the woman without a witness or without a man and brought to Jesus only to get rid of Jesus. So as I was listening to you, I was thinking about how often did we do that? To take out parts of the Bible and to connect it with some people without any witnesses or other counterparts.
Yeah.
Only to create a schism or to put someone down.
Yep. An echo chamber, right? And like, oh yeah, this person is wrong and this is why it's wrong, and now I have justification as to why it's wrong, right?
Yes, still see that in today's world all the time.
There are churches, Hannah. I just watched something on social media about a teenage girl who got pregnant and had to go to her church congregation in front of the congregation and apologize for committing the sin.
Oh.
And I heard another story of a mother who, she was now an adult, explaining that she had to do the very same thing before her child could be blessed in the church. And I thought, oh my goodness.
Well, I, as lately as 2021 or 2, I ended up marrying a couple who belonged to another church whose pastor refused to marry them because they have been cohabitating before the marriage.
I mean,
So,
with the grace of God that abounds for each and every one of us, it's really disheartening for me to imagine shaming someone
based on the scripture.
and using God as the justification for that
Yes.
shame.
Yes.
That's disgusting.
And I think that could be the reason why this story is here, as the story that saves us, and as a story of forgiveness. So I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no, that was that statement that I wanted to make.
And what do you think about Jesus' response to those scamming?
You know, I love Jesus in so many ways. Like, I really do, because he's just so over the nonsense. The thing that's interesting to me about it is that they've created a spectacle now. The crowd is there, right? And so now everyone is...
It's a circus now.
You know how folks are when it's a circus and it's a spectacle. Everybody's looking and pointing. They want to see what's going to happen, right?
They like the thrill
of it all. You know, that's why even, how sick are we when someone's in a car accident and everybody can't help but to turn. It's like, just pray for the people and keep
causes
moving.
the traffic.
Hello, pray and keep it moving. Why do you need all the details? But they've created this spectacle. And they want to see, what Jesus is going to do. And Jesus, to me, refuses to engage in the spectacle of it all. Like, he refuses to engage in the shame of it all. He refuses to engage in her embarrassment. But rather, it's so absurd to him. And really, not even just like it's so absurd, but it's so harmful to someone's personhood to bring them forward in the way that she has been presented, right? As this sinner, no name, no real context, no, like you said, no witness, no other person there. She's just standing there alone. And I think that Jesus kind of looking away from the Pharisees and bending down is a reminder that, like, he's not going to engage in this kind of foolishness, this kind of spectating. He's not going to put himself in this kind of bullying, right? Because essentially that's kind of what it is. You're bringing a woman to be stoned, or to at least see what he's going to say about her being stoned, right? And when he bends down, it's like he's not engaging. Like, I refuse to engage. So he doesn't say anything at first, and then they keep pressing him, right? And so then Jesus is like, okay, since you keep asking me, now I'm about to really tell you. And so he gets up, right? And then he says what he says. And he says, whoever hasn't sinned, well, then you should throw the first stone. And then he bends right back down and starts writing on the ground as to not engage with him any further. Like, I've said what I said. This is what it is. And I'm not going to continue to go back and forth with you in the humiliation tour that you're trying to take this woman on.
Yes. And it's a beautiful mixture of verbal and non-verbal engagement here. So those people who wanted to accuse him and entrap him brought an accessory and used their words to accuse him.
Yep.
And I wonder how those people must have felt when Jesus bent down and started writing without any words. And so the active verbal attack and then inactive non-verbal response, it's not just looking away or ignoring or pretending not to hear. It was active action, bending down your body to write something as if you're doing something different.
Yeah.
And when he got up, his verbal response carried more weight from the non-verbal action. And he's not reacting to their accusation. He's responding over their false accusation, saying, what was it?
I always say, let he who is without sin cast the first stone.
Yeah.
But
whoever hasn't sinned should throw the first stone. And if you haven't sinned, you can throw the stone. Just act or damage others only if you are flawless.
Right. And you know what's also interesting to me? When I imagine Jesus bending down, I would assume that the woman is not standing right straight up. I assume that she's been, when I imagine I wasn't there. But when I use my little theological imagination, I just imagine them kind of like swinging her in there and she kind of falls to the ground in shame with her head down, kind of. That's what I have. And I imagine Jesus bending down to write something on the ground. We don't know. We don't know what Jesus was writing. But I just imagine the imagery of being on the ground and feeling like you are just in the dirt and that you are so dirty and so unworthy, and having God be there in the dirt with you
at the
same level with you to remind you that, you may have made a mistake, but I'm right here with you. And there's nothing, you were made from this dust and this dirt, so don't be ashamed of it, right? I'm going to hold you in it. How can you move on and do it differently next time? How can you be better next time? And so that image of Jesus bending down for me is like Jesus coming to me in my moments of
to be present
with me in my dirt.
When you're most humiliated.
When I'm most humiliated and my heart is broken and I don't know what to do and I don't want to look up, I think that's when God really gets down in the dirt with me and reminds me, that you're not alone and I won't be a part of the spectacle. No matter what the world says, I say different.
Yes, and I'm pretty sure, I'm so delighted to hear that you bring that point. I'm pretty sure that Jesus was fully present on the ground with that lady, because after saying whatever he had to say, he went
back down.
So usually when people challenge others, whoever said that challenging words, look around the room to see how others respond to your words. Jesus didn't care if other people laughed or throw the stone. I'm pretty sure he might have been preparing to cover her,
right,
if someone starts throwing. But he wasn't paying attention to other people's reactions to his words.
Yeah.
And that's how confident he was when he said those words. And people were leaving. And you have to explain to us why you chuckled when you read that part about the elders leaving first.
I certainly will. And I feel sometimes, as being raised by a woman who was born in 1936, that I sometimes attribute myself to one of the spiritual elders. But anyways, in verse 9, those who heard him went away one by one, beginning with the elders. I think sometimes in the church, when we are so conditioned to do things a certain way and God's Spirit comes in and invites us to something new, then it's like, I don't want to do that. And the elders are sometimes the first people to say, we changed the service. I'm not coming in. I'm used to it being this way. I'm used to it. Look, I'm used to us doing this thing this way. And then they get so frustrated that the Spirit of God is evolving in the church and moving us to do different things that they often leave. And I think that they're the ones who gather around first to kind of, no shade, but kind of gather around and make sure that the church is upholding the rituals and the law of the church, the values of the church. And when we challenge those traditions and want them to be a little bit different or a little bit more encompassing or a little bit more inclusive, folks sometimes get mad. And I mean, when I say elders, I mean people who are entrenched in the church. I don't care if you're 35 like me or 75. We all have our ways if we are institutionalized church people, you know?
And I saw another side of that same sentence and chuckled inside in a different way. So it's human nature, universal human nature. We are bound to sin. We are bound to be flawed. And if you think about all the sins at the moment, when you're challenged to think about your life, the elders have got to go first because they lived longer. And you count all those days and actions and those moments that you're not proud of. You had to let go of the stone. So that's my perspective on that chuckling part. I didn't mind you chuckling.
Oh, I had to. I don't know why I chuckled so deep, but it did make me chuckle.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, I think that when we think about this text and we think about the story of forgiveness, that Jesus didn't condemn the woman for making a mistake, but he does challenge her, go from here and now sin no more, right? So we make mistakes, but may it be in us not to make the same mistake over and over. And I think that when Jesus doesn't condemn her, he's also inviting her not to condemn herself, to lift herself up from the dirt and hold her head up high, and to move in her life differently now that she understands what forgiveness looks like, so that she might,
Yes, and I try to add a little bit different time frame into that structure as well. That's a brilliant point. And people brought her to Jesus to ask a question about her past and make something happen present. But Jesus is taking upon from that moment, starting from present, moving into the future.
Yep.
So Jesus is all about turning the past and letting the past die and something new be resurrected and giving this lady a new life, a new future, clean slate to refresh.
It's like Jesus is inviting us, I think all of us, this woman as well, to use our past, our experiences, and our mistakes to move forward to forge a life that is different, you know what I mean, than what it would have been had we not taken the fullness of those experiences and the fullness of those mistakes as God trying to teach us something, or life teaching us something, or being more holistically aligned, I think.
Connected.
Integrated, that's the word. There we go. More holistically integrated than we would have otherwise.
Yes. So bringing everything together and highlighting the story of forgiveness. And since there's the universality of human weaknesses and sinfulness, we all need that grace and forgiving grace that's freely given to all of us. And it's up to us how we take that away from that moment of forgiveness towards the future. And I want to do you a little Korean lesson. You're great at mimicking, so can you say this? 50보,
50보,
100보.
100보?
That literally means 50 steps or 100 steps. They're the same. So English translation, I searched a little bit, would be a miss is as good as a mile. Whether you're 1 year old, 100 years old, whether you're super religious or not, whether you're woman or man, before God, whether we are 50 steps away or 100 steps away, we are all the same. Everyone needs the same forgiving grace that welcomes us all and make us a whole and integrate all aspects of our lives. And we never achieve it, but we walk towards it.
Yeah.
Ding, 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 Wesleyan.
Oh, Wesleyan, we trying hard to get towards the sanctifying.
Yes, we never reach there, but we are in this together as a community.
Yeah.
And hope our faith community becomes a place that actually embraces all our sinfulness and carry each other to be better integrated and find the welcoming and forgiving grace through each other.
Yeah. And I just add to that, Reverend Hannah, that I hope that we are a place that doesn't shy away from getting in the dirt and sitting and standing with people and covering them who may be in the dirt.
You and I will be crawling on the dirt together.
Belly to the ground.
Did you share everything you wanted to share?
I did, I think.
Awesome. Glad to have this conversation with you. And
Man.
50 steps, 100 steps. We'll count every day.
We'll count every day, girl.
With those in our hearts, I would like to ask our audience some questions. In response to the reading and our conversation, I would like to invite you to think about these questions. If you placed yourself in the story, who would you be? Or where would you be? And have you ever experienced or extended forgiveness that felt undeserved? What does this story teach us about the nature of God's forgiveness? Let's dwell in the forgiveness in the weeks to come. And we'll be taking a little break during the Holy Week, with just one Sunday off, one week off, and then we'll be back after Easter. So thanks for listening, and hope to see you in 2 weeks.
See you soon.
Bye.
This is a production of First United Methodist Church of San Diego. To learn more about our events and ministries and to access additional learning resources, visit fumcsd.org.